Dear colleagues, I would like to welcome you to the EBA's first ever training for supervisors that is dedicated to countering the financing of terrorism. I do not need to tell you why countering the financing of terrorism is important. For many of us, it is personal. Europe has seen its fair share of terrorist attacks, and that threat is changing and maybe rising. There's a lot that we as regulators and supervisors can do to stop terrorism financing, and so I'm very pleased that so many of you are joining us today to learn about the latest typologies and trends and to learn from each other. For us at the EBA, countering the financing of terrorism is clearly a priority. It is written in our funding regulation, and we are leading work to make sure that financial institutions and supervisors know what is expected of them. Our 2021 opinion on money laundering and terrorism financing risk, our revised guidelines on MLTF risk factors, and our guidelines on cooperation between FIUs, prudential supervisors, and AML CFT supervisors that we published last month are, all three of them, just a few examples of what we have done recently, and more is to come. I believe that there are three constituent parts to an effective approach to countering the financing of terrorism. The first part is the risk-based approach. The reference to the risk-based approach as a cornerstone of an effective counter-terrorist regime may seem surprising at first. Countering the financing of terrorism is often used as a synonym for sanctioning screening, which is of course rules-based. But let's remember that those who make it onto sanctions lists are just the tip of the iceberg, and they are those groups or individuals that are already known to pose a threat. Those who are not known do not appear on sanctions lists. And that is why the risk-based approach, which allows institutions and supervisors to focus on those areas and those transactions that pose the greatest terrorist financing risks, are key to preventing and detecting terrorist financing across the board. This brings me to the second constituent part of an effective counter-terrorist financing regime, which is information sharing. Without good information, supervisors and financial institutions cannot know where the greatest risks lie, and this is true particularly when it comes to terrorist financing risk, which is evolving at a pace and is significantly less easily understood than money laundering risk overall. Lack of understanding or an out-of-date understanding of terrorist financing risk gives rise to significant vulnerabilities, especially in those member states where the phenomenon of radicalization is more prevalent or where the numbers of foreign fighters and returnees are higher. So we need to work together to exchange information and make sure the supervisors, financial institutions, and law enforcement officers have access to the best and most up-to-date information to inform our respective terrorist financing risk assessments and mitigation strategies. And therefore, the final third constituent part of an effective counter-terrorist financing regime is cooperation. Terrorist financing cannot be stopped by one actor alone or by one member state. This is why strengthening cooperation is a key focus for the EBA, both across borders, and I am sure many of you will have participated in the new AML CFT colleges that are now being set up across the European Union, but also domestically. And here I note that many of you attended a recent conference on cooperation between FIUs, AML CFT supervisors, and prudential supervisors that took place last week. Today, our training gathers an even larger range of experts around our virtual table to exchange views and best practices, and looking particularly at innovative approaches that hold great promise, such as knowledge hubs where AML CFT supervisors engage in a close and ongoing cooperation with FIUs, law enforcement authorities, and the private sector. In summary, we did a proportionate and effective risk-based approach to countering terrorist financing that is based on the best information available and a strong cooperation with a strong and consistent enforcement by supervisors across the EU. Terrorist financing has no place in Europe, and it won't have a place if we all play our part. I wish you all a fruitful day of exchange and discussion. Thank you for your attention.